Night Springs, a special place, a shifting space, existing in a countless number of parallel realities. Different every time we set upon the road that leads us there, and yet always familiar to us. In Night Springs.
You know what? My YouTube channel is a lot like Night Springs. It's full of strange and unusual things, like, me posting a video. But I just had to, didn't I? Apparently, it's becoming a thing that I just make content around DLC, completely skipping the part where I say, hey, I like this game. But I like Alan Wake 2. I also love Control, and I'm quite sure I'm becoming obsessed with the Remedy connected universe. I have a whole video about that in the works. But that's a disastrous tale for another day. Remedy have just released their first DLC for Alan Wake 2, and it's as weird and wonderful as anybody would expect content from Remedy to be. It takes the form of 3 episodes from the in-world TV series Night Springs. The 3 stories spring from the mind of Alan as he tries to right himself out of the dark place. In each episode, he plays a different character in the form of Alan's biggest fan Rose, Control's Jesse Faden, and Sheriff Tim Breaker. Or is it Sean Ashmore? It all gets a bit meta at times. I'm not going to get into the story of each episode, but later for episode 3 I may brush around spoilers for the wider Remedy connected universe, and the episodes themselves, so you have been warned. Despite the fact I was absolutely desperate for more Jesse Faden in my life, I actually restrained myself and played all 3 episodes in order, starting with Rose's episode. Which, I won't lie, seeing Rose in the trailer with a shotgun was an amusing sight, and something I just had to experience. Episode 1 was over in a flash. No, I mean literally. While all 3 episodes are entertaining, they're all pretty short. On my playthrough, episode 1 and 3 came in at about an hour each, and 2 hours for episode 2, and that's because A, I'm stupid and couldn't figure out that the answer to a puzzle had a Polaris-shaped target on it, and B, photo mode has now been included in the game and I get really easily distracted. The gameplay hasn't reinvented the wheel either. Everything from the main game is here. Maybe with a different coat of paint and spread out over the 3 episodes in different ways, but they haven't really brought anything new into play. There's one part where you have to sneak around a warehouse, but it's not like they've magically invented a crouch function. It's simply just hiding behind something that's the right height. Though, saying that, I did find it quite punishing at times, but this could have been because I haven't picked up the game in a few months. I've always thought the gunplay in Alan Wake 2 had its awkward quirks that could make it difficult, but I always thought that added to the horror aspect of the whole game, but it did still take some adjustment to get used to it again. They've been pretty clever with how they've reused their assets from the base game, up to a certain point. For the most part, you don't feel like you're rehashing those same locations. They've made enough changes and they're all massively scaled down, but it's pretty obvious it's all the same assets, just repurposed. Of the 3, episode 2 is my favourite. My opinion might just be being clouded by the fact I'm a Jesse Faden fangirl, but of the 3, I think it's the one that most felt like the actual game, but with a Control twist. I like that Polaris was flashing about all over the place. I like that at times it seemed like Jesse was just going to curse her way through the entire episode.
Just let me inside the fucking building.
That is incorrect.
I loved that the handgun that you use doesn't at all handle or feel like any other handgun in the game. It had a feel of the service weapon from Control, and I think that added to the gameplay for me. Episode 3 focuses on Sheriff Tim Breaker from the main game, except they've put this really meta spin on it where it's possibly Shawn Ashmore. Personally, I didn't care for that detail, but that's me. I thought this one was Remedy at their absolute best at finding different mediums and ways to tell a story. They do some really interesting stuff, including a comic strip which I partly took to be a bit of a nod back to Max Payne. But, well, it was also used for a bit of an exposition dump. So I imagine it was a bit of a cost cut to do a narrated comic strip rather than a full cutscene. Episode 3 also does with Quantum Break what the main game did with Max Payne. They bring them into the connected universe in their own way, but without actually naming any of the characters or game that they're part of. Of the 3, Episode 1 is the one, to me, that stands out a bit. Episode 2 and 3 both link to the wider Remedy connected universe and adds to it. All I can think is that Episode 1 was the episode that had the main focus on the main game and Alan himself. I mean, that makes sense. Rose is his biggest fan after all. Personally, I do think Night Springs is style over substance. But I don't totally mean that in a bad way. Yes, it was short. Night Springs was all done and dusted in a few hours, with fairly minimum gameplay. Does the enjoyment of the story outweigh that? Possibly. It's a subjective opinion. By the end of Episode 1, I had already started to feel a bit hard done by. By the end of Episode 3, I realised all 3 parts contributed to a wider package as far as DLC goes. Is it value for money? That's a bit of a harder one to cost, I suppose. Night Springs is only available as part of the deluxe edition of the game, so I suppose value can't be judged until the second DLC is released. My only hope would be that the next DLC, The Lake House, has a bit more meat to it to justify that extra cost. It's a must for any die-hard fans of Remedy games. For the people who have totally bought into this idea of a shared universe. Like me, I'm one of those people. For a casual player who's only played the base game, it might all just seem confusing, and a bit more out there than it really needed to be. I figured out I'm likely going to get value out of this just replaying episode 2 over and over and over again. For science. To, test out the photo mode. And not just look at Jesse Faden, whose character model has now had a massive upscale from Control. Totally not going to do that. It's been a while, hasn't it? You know what? My next video that I touched on earlier has got stuck in production hell for various reasons, from equipment issues to me being ill for a month to having to completely replace my laptop. But I suppose no better way to test out the new laptop than to edit this. Night Springs has now managed to outdate my next video before it's even released. That's pretty impressive on Remedy's part, but I'm not going back to refilming, so I'll just have to roll with it. And if you want to see what my next video is, which who knows if it'll actually be what I've been working on, at the rate I'm going, the next Alan Wake DLC will be out and I'll be looking at that instead. Whatever does come next, subscribe to the channel if you want to find out. It'll be a surprise. It'll be a surprise to me too. But with all that said, I will see you in the next one.